Hello and welcome back. I'm your friendly neighborhood technician. Today we're going to get the crankshaft installed, and we're also going to go over installing the bearings for the crankshaft, and we're going to go over verifying the clearance for the bearings for the crankshaft, and we're going to use Plastigauge for that. So keep watching. Alright, here's your crankshaft main bearing caps, and I have them placed upside down, numbered left to right, 1 through 7. You can see right here. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 7, along with 14 of the small nuts, 14 of the large nuts, and 10 of the bolts that go in the side. And also our thrust bearings right there that go right here on number 5. Another thing I have is a complete set of the main bearings. Now you remember when I was going through the sizing, that's a 52. That is the number that I came up with by going through and looking at the number that's on the crankshaft and getting the correct number to order. So that's why we're going to verify, just in case these aren't correct, but we want to check that before we assemble the entire engine. And here's the brand new bearing. That's the lower bearing. And the upper bearing right there. That's the upper bearing. It's got the hole in it because that's where the oil comes from. But got 7 of them. Let's get to installing them. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get these bearings installed. And you can really only install them one way. You can see that has a notch right there. And you can see right here there's a notch, and there's a notch in the same spot on each one. So really just going to get them in there, and they're going to sit kind of flush. So they're going to be flush here, and they're going to be flush on both sides. You don't really want it rotated one way or another, because you don't want it sitting too far this way or sitting too far that way. So you want to be able to torque them down properly. So we're going to make sure that, I think this one has to go down a little bit. Yeah, that one's okay. And also, you can see right here, the oil hole right in the middle. That's also why you have to get this thing clocked properly. You probably pretty much won't be able to install them anyway if it's way too far out. So you'll notice if it's not proper. All right, so I did some remeasuring, and the crankshaft measures 2.282 inches, which comes out to 57.93 millimeters. And the bearings that I got are 57.985, which by my calculations should leave me with 22 thousandths of a millimeter of bearing clearance for the oil. Now, the Plastigauge we're going to use is going to be the green one, which is for 0.025, so 25 thousandths of a millimeter and up. So it may be a little big, but we're going to give it a try. We're going to see what it says, and but that bearing clearance might be a little snug. But so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the crankshaft in place gently, because I did not lube this up. I don't want to lube this up and take up any extra space in there, or I don't want to lube up the entire crankshaft and then the Plastigauge doesn't work because it's too oily and whatnot. So I'm just not going to rotate the crankshaft when it's in here. I'm just going to set it down, and that's going to be it. And then we're going to torque down. We're going to have to torque down all of these to the proper torque and the proper sequence, just so we can get a correct reading. And I'm going to put a piece of Plastigauge on each one of these crankshaft bearing journals. You're going to put on these the same way as the other one. You're just going to want to make sure they're as flush as possible, and the notch goes with the notch. So you can see it's sticking up right there a little bit, and it's down right there. So if you just like that. Next, what you're going to want to do is get a piece of the plastic gauge, and you're going to want to make sure it's just as wide as the bearing surface right there. And you're going to set it right on top of the middle. And then, now what I am going to lube up is I'm going to lube up these points right here and that point right there and the bottoms of these right here, because those are snug and I want to make sure this torques down properly. I don't want to have any extra friction right here and it doesn't torque properly. So I'm going to lube those points, and then when I put the nuts on there, I'm going to lube the threads and the nuts here with some motor oil, just like the instructions say. Now I'm going to do the rest of them. Number 2, and if you notice down here, that bolt hole is offset. So you can, according to the instructions, you can only install it one way, but even if you install it backwards, the hole is still on the same side. Now we're going to put all the nuts on. Now one thing you want to do is you want to oil the threads right here, and also you want to oil the contact surface of the nut, which is going to be right here. So basically this whole top area almost of each one of the main bearing caps. Now we're going to put on the nuts. So as you can see, I can't get these in because the bearing cap is too high. So as I snug them down, I'm going to feed the 2 end bolts in, the side bolts, and it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this, then 5, and then 6, and then we'll go through the rest of the pattern. Now I'm not torquing them just yet, but I am going to snug them down just so I can get these threaded. Now we're going to torque down the bolts. The big nuts go to 50, the small nuts go to 30, and the side bolts also go to 30. Now to 30 Newton meters. There. Now that they're all torqued, we can take it back apart. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to record that because You just saw me put it together. I'm gonna take it apart, then I gotta put it back together again. So I'm gonna take it apart and we're gonna see what the plastic gauge looks like. Now what you're gonna do, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see right there, there's where it's smushed. You can see right there. Now it's kind of, when you get it in the dark, you can tell. Now you're gonna take this little strip, one side's millimeters, one side's inches. You can see right there. We're gonna use the millimeters and we're going to match it up to which one of these it will be closest in size to. So you can see it's not 0.076, 0.51. It looks like it's pretty much almost exactly 0.038 is the clearance we have, which is pretty good. It's not super, super tight. This is going to be super, super tight, 0.025. You can see right there, it's smushed down less than that. The bigger this is, the farther that smush, the tighter your clearance. The smaller it smushes down, the bigger your clearance. So it's right there in the middle. So I like that. I'm going to take the rest of these caps off. I'm going to lube up this crankshaft, and then I'm going to torque the caps back down, and then we're going to be pretty much done. Now that we have the crankshaft back out and all the clearances are okay, I am going to put the thrust bearings back in place. You can see here's one of them, and this goes just like that. I'm going to put a spot of assembly lube on it just to hold it in place. Something like that. Just like that. And now the other one. Now it's going to sit just like that. That's going to sit just like that. And then we'll put the other two on the main bearing cap. And on this one, which happens to be number 5, don't forget to put the other halves of these thrust bearings right there, and also stuck with some assembly lube. And here we are, crankshaft installed, spins nice and smooth and freely. These torque down to 50 Newton meters, these torque down to 30 Newton meters, and then these torque down to 30 Newton meters as well. You can see, nice and smooth, doesn't make a sound. Okay, so hopefully the next video on this engine, we will get the connecting rods and pistons back in with new piston rings. We'll go over that. And then I'm replacing one piston. So we'll do that next video on this. I'm not sure if that'll be the next video or but it'll definitely be the next video on this engine. So thank you for watching. Make sure you hit the give me the thumbs up, hit subscribe, and make sure you hit the notification icon so you get notifications when I post a new video. Thanks for watching.